Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa and Associates. For a consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.
Hello, my name is Mary Campbell, legal assistant at the law firm of Figueroa and Associates, and your presenter with this week's immigration news. When enforcement turns deadly, the ICE killing of Silverio Villegas-Gonzalez and what it reveals. The killing of Silverio Villegas-Gonzalez by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agents in Franklin Park, Illinois, has ignited a national debate about the boundaries of immigration enforcement and the use of deadly force. More than a single incident, the September 12, 2025 shooting highlights the profound tensions between federal enforcement priorities and community trust, between claims of officer safety and demands for accountability, and between political imperatives and constitutional protections. As details emerge, some contested, others still withheld, this case has quickly become a flashpoint in the broader struggle over transparency, civil rights, and the future of immigration policy in the United States. The incident, what we know, on September 12, 2025, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agents shot and killed Silverio Villegas-Gonzalez, a 38-year-old Mexican national, during a vehicle stop in Franklin Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. According to statements from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and ICE, officers were conducting a targeted enforcement operation under the Trump administration's immigration enforcement campaign, named Operation Midway Blitz, which is part of stepped-up efforts in Illinois to crack down on unauthorized immigration. During a traffic stop, Villegas-Gonzalez allegedly attempted to flee. He drove his vehicle toward ICE officers, struck, and dragged one of them. The ICE officer, fearing for his life, fired his weapon. Villegas-Gonzalez was hit, transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. The officer was also injured, dragged, etc., and hospitalized in stable condition. From local reporting, family members describe Villegas-Gonzalez as a father of three, originally from Mexico, working in the Portage Park area and having lived in the U.S. for over 20 years. Villegas-Gonzalez's family contests or at least seeks fuller transparency around the circumstances. Community members and immigrant rights advocates are critical of ICE's tactics, claiming militarized enforcement, lack of transparency, and the danger these operations pose to immigrant communities. Why this matters? This killing is more than a single event. It's significant for multiple overlapping reasons. 1. Escalation of immigration enforcement. The incident comes amid Operation Midway Blitz, a federally directed enforcement effort in Illinois aimed at unauthorized immigrants, particularly in sanctuary jurisdictions. These operations often involve increased presence of ICE, targeted stops, arrests, sometimes coupled with traffic stops or detention checks. 2. Use of deadly force and accountability. Whenever law enforcement, especially federal immigration enforcement, uses deadly force, questions arise about whether that force was necessary, whether it was proportional, whether proper protocols were followed, and whether there is accountability. Given the claim that the officer was dragged by the car, ICE and DHS invoke self-defense to justify the shooting. But these claims need independent verification. Video evidence, body cam/dash cam/surveillance video, forensic details, distance, speed, warning, whether non-lethal alternatives were possible, who gave what command, etc. Local officials and the public are demanding a full factual accounting with transparency. 3. Impact on immigrant communities. This sort of enforcement operation generates fear, trauma, distrust. People may avoid interacting with law enforcement even when they need to, for fear of deportation or fatal consequences. It tends to ripple beyond the immediate victim and family, affecting entire neighborhoods. Also, families emphasize that this man had been in the U.S. many years, supporting his family, and not in trouble before. 4. Political and legal stakes. The event highlights several legal and constitutional issues: use of force standards, immigrants' rights, oversight of ICE, state vs. federal jurisdiction, the political push under current administration to make enforcement more aggressive. Also, the role of sanctuary policies and the conflict between local/state leaders who advocate for immigrants' protections vs. federal agents enforcing immigration laws. 5. Demand for transparency. Local officials, Governor G.B. Pritzker, and civil rights groups are calling for video release, independent investigation, clear statements about what happened, because ICE and DHS statements are the primary source now, but often there are discrepancies or delays in verifying what actually occurred. Uncertainties and challenges. While much is claimed, several key aspects remain unclear and under investigation. These uncertainties are important. Verification of dragging claim. ICE claims the officer was dragged a significant distance, but what distance? Under what conditions? Was the dragging continuous? Was there video? Did the car hit the officer first, and was it deliberate, accidental, panicked driving? Identity and background of victim. While identified, more context about previous interactions, criminal history, whether he was aware ICE was pulling him over, whether commands were clear, whether nonviolent compliance was attempted, etc. ICE says he was in country illegally and had a record for reckless driving. But this is not sufficient to justify lethal force on its own. Officers' actions/role. How did officers approach the stop? Were less lethal methods possible? Did any de-escalation attempts occur? Was the danger immediate and life-threatening, as required under use of force doctrine? These matters will influence legal findings and public perceptions, legal standard and oversight. Which agency investigates? ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility, DHS Inspector General, independent state or federal oversight. Will criminal charges follow or purely administrative review? Broader context, enforcement policy and political climate. This incident doesn't happen in a vacuum. It fits into a broader nationwide trend and political strategy. The Trump administration has intensified immigration enforcement, especially in states with sanctuary policies. Operation Midway Blitz is an example of that push. There is strong political pressure from certain constituencies to show toughness on immigration, which sometimes incentivizes more forceful or aggressive tactics by ICE. Sanctuary jurisdictions, cities or states or local governments that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement, are under pressure. ICE operations often occur in part to challenge or penalize those jurisdictions. There's also a growing public debate about whether current laws and policies sufficiently constrain ICE and require oversight, especially in cases where lethal force is used. Many civil liberties and immigrant rights groups argue there is insufficient transparency or accountability. Implications and what's next. What should be watched as the fallout continues? 1. Investigation and adjudication. Will there be full, independent investigations? Will there be video or surveillance footage released? Will the medical examiner's report or autopsy clarifications be made public? Will ICE or DHS accept external review? 2. Civil litigation or family claims. The family might sue for wrongful death, excessive force, civil rights violation. Their claims might depend heavily on whether ICE followed policies, whether the killing was justified, whether lesser force could have been used. 3. Policy changes/oversight reforms. There could be legislative or administrative reactions, more oversight over ICE, stricter use of force standards, body cameras, requirements for disclosure of enforcement procedures, or accounting for individual incidents. Local political leaders may respond with calls to restrict ICE authority or cooperation. 4. Public narrative and political pressure, public reaction, media coverage, community organizing matter. The extent to which the event becomes a rallying point for immigrant rights advocates or becomes politicized in elections could influence future enforcement policy. 5. Risk of further escalation. If ICE operations continue to escalate without transparency or restraint, there is risk of more deadly encounters, more protests or civil unrest, erosion of trust in law enforcement among immigrant communities, and legal pushback. Conclusion: the killing of Silverio Villegas-Gonzalez by an ICE officer during a vehicle stop in Franklin Park is a stark reminder of how immigration enforcement can quickly become deadly. The official narrative, one of a suspect dragging an officer, acting in self-defense, is contested not only by community members, but by the need for independent verification. What is certain? The event reflects the high stakes involved in current immigration policy and enforcement under the Trump administration. It forces questions about the balance between public safety and individual rights, about transparency and accountability, about how forced or lethal encounters are handled when law enforcement confronts fleeing suspects, and about how communities, particularly immigrant communities, are impacted. As investigations proceed, the case may serve as a touchstone. Will law enforcement be held to its own declared standards? Will ICE practices adjust? Will public demand for transparency and justice lead to changes? The answers matter, not just for one man or one family, but for how the country treats its most vulnerable residents, its principles of due process, and its laws governing life and death in law enforcement operations.
Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa & Associates. For a consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.